Hey everyone, this is Bob McIntosh from Mass Hire Lowell Career Center, and I am honored to be with Kevin Turner. Kevin Turner, in my opinion, knows more about LinkedIn than anyone. Whenever there are changes made, whenever features rest in peace, he alerts us to them. So this is the third time Kevin's going to be with me, and I'm very, very happy about that. Like I'd say all of my guest speakers, I know Kevin through LinkedIn. You know, LinkedIn, just that goes to show you just how powerful a networking tool LinkedIn is, among other things. Kevin's from Dallas, Texas. And I thought we'd have a little banter about the upcoming championship. Well, assuming that Dallas is going to make it to the playoffs. Raise of hands of how many of you are watching the Celtics. Yeah, I got one hand. Brian, G. Okay, yeah. So hands are going up. Very good. You know, by the way, on the right-hand side where you can raise your hand, you can also ask questions. And I would ask you to keep your questions short so that I can read them. And I'll try to get those in, you know, for Kevin to answer. These would be questions for him to answer. So I got a little story here. One day I was wondering, okay, so when did I join LinkedIn? You know, I don't know why I was wondering that, but who should I call? It's got to be Kevin. And so Kevin told me how to find out when I joined LinkedIn. And for those of you who want to know, when you join LinkedIn, you go to Settings and Privacy, Data Privacy, Manage Your Data, Activity, and this is the tricky part. Choose the last page. Do you remember those instructions, Kevin?
I do. Yeah. Sometimes I remember them in my sleep, which is a little scary.
Yeah. And so Kevin and I joined LinkedIn. Oh, maybe I should put him on the spot. When do you think, when do you think you and I were connected on LinkedIn?
When do I think you were connected? I could find out.
I know. So we were connected in November 16th of 2018. That's when you and I became connections. Now, you were probably on LinkedIn way before that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good.
There we are.
So let's get the show going. I also want to point out that Kevin has a YouTube channel that is doing quite well. He's got a lot of followers. So, you know, check him out. Also, you see Kevin's profile, or well, you see mine. You know, when you see Kevin's profile, follow him, you know. Just type in Kevin D. Turner and then follow him on LinkedIn. You will get a lot of value out of doing that. Okay, so ready, Kevin?
Absolutely.
All right, let's go.
And first of all, Bob, thank you very much for having me back. I always enjoy talking with you and your group. You are one of these people that give a lot on LinkedIn. There are a lot of people who take. You always give. You do come to me for questions, but I'm so happy to help you because I know you do good things with them. You share with people, and you're always there to support me as well. And in the quest of keeping up with LinkedIn, right, and helping everybody understand that, one thing I found out very early on is you can't do it alone.
No, absolutely not.
It takes a group of people.
And you know, the information I share is for the job search, strictly for the job search.
And I think to me that's a big piece of LinkedIn, whether we're actively in a search or we just want to secure our future.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There are all these tools, they do an incredible job. And if we do it right, if we start using LinkedIn the right way, we should never have to look for a job.
Sure.
It should be looking for us. It should come to us. And you know, those are the opportunities when you get LinkedIn functioning for you.
Right.
And yeah.
Because you know, it's no longer what you know or who you know, it's who knows you, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. And what do they know you for?
Absolutely. Right. What is your brand?
That's a big piece of it. And
absolutely.
You know, and I always joke about this. I call it personal branding, and that's where people try to throw in everything they've ever done into their LinkedIn. And they figure, you know, if Bob gets there, Bob will figure out what he wants out of there, kind of like a buffet menu, right? And Kevin will pick something else. Nobody does that. You've got to refine that brand,
Sure.
put it in a way that moves you forward to your goals. I always look at past in my career. I was in venture capital.
Mm-hmm.
I had 7 small companies I was incubating. I was incredibly good at figuring out taxes, right? And payroll by hand. So this is turn of the century stuff. It's before all the software, right? I could do it 4 years, never made a mistake except for one time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had people showing up on my door Friday night. We had had an 80-hour work week. I said, I'm not going back. I said, I've got some cash. Will that hold you till Monday? We'll fix it. And we did, because I don't ever want to do that again.
Mm-hmm.
It's never in any of my presentation. You won't find it on LinkedIn. You wouldn't find it in my resume, right? Because I never want to do it again. So sometimes we've done things that not necessarily move us forward. You don't need to be talking about those. You need to be talking, focusing, and showing people what you want to do, what gets you to your goal. And that's really what personal branding is about. Branding is when you try to tell them everything and I can do it all, the Jack and Jill of all trades, right? And the end of that is master of none. Nobody hires a master of none unless they're running a convent. That's the way it is, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think too many job seekers think that they need to include everything they've done on their resume, their LinkedIn profile, and that will impress. But I think what you need to understand is what will impress is what the employers need from them.
Exactly. So. And they're hoping, well, I can do this. I don't want to be passed up for that. And I can do that, and I don't want to be passed up for that. I want to be considered for everything. So much so, again, they just become a blur. They don't become an expert in anything. And, if you can get that focus right and really fine tune it, narrow it in, you get to where you want to be faster than if you do this. I'm for everybody.
Right.
And I think
so. Let's start at the top of the profile and let's talk, not only about branding but also optimization. So how do we get found? So you have your profile in front of you.
Absolutely.
Take it away.
Well, and I'm going to, if I can, take one step back, Bob. Sure. I want everybody to think about LinkedIn in a different way, not just what we see in a profile, but what's going on behind the scenes in a profile.
Perfect.
LinkedIn is, basically we have a choice on LinkedIn to be 1 in a billion or to be number 1 in a billion for what we want to do, right? And it is the world's largest database of resumes. If you actually download your profile, LinkedIn even calls it a resume. They don't even call it a profile. It's a resume. That's what it is. So it's this 1 billion resumes out there. Sure, there's some fake ones. There's some that have gone on to other, worlds, and they're there. Right. But we're still in that mix. And if you think about it as a database, right? If you don't kind of follow and embrace database best practices, you become this data that gets lost, right? Think about if you're running an Excel spreadsheet and each column had, what it was supposed to be, expenses, investments, whatever they are, right? If you had a number to go in that Excel spreadsheet that didn't belong anywhere, you could either put it in the wrong column or you could put it in the other column.
Sure.
Right? Nobody searches by other, and nobody likes wrong data. So want to really embrace this. And we're going to go through today in the sense of how does LinkedIn respond as a database so we can maximize our possibilities.
Right.
Now, that gets them to your profile.
And you're going to talk a little bit about the algorithm.
We can do that as well.
Okay.
Great. Yeah. You tell me when we're going to stop. Tuesday, I got to cut it off by Tuesday.
Yes.
Right?
I was thinking that this webinar could be 2 days long.
It absolutely could. Right. And at the same time, it could be 5 minutes long. So
yeah, that's
that's the key, is to get them to our profile.
Sure.
But once we get them to the profile, you've got to sell them, right? And I look at this top section. LinkedIn used to call this the top card, right? I don't know what they call it now, but that was the reference.
Yeah.
Top card. Think of it like your business card, right? If you were in the old days passing out business cards, this is your business card.
Right.
It should be branded. It should tell them very quickly what you do, how to get in contact with you, all those kind of things. That's this top card. So it's really important when they land here that we're not doing things like leaving the default 4 shades of gray background, right? Or having a picture that doesn't represent us in a good way.
Right, right.
So, so easy now to do background banners. You can get a free account on Canva. They've got a section for free LinkedIn background banners. They've got now AI that you could say, I'm a regional sales manager in the telecom industry. I need a background banner and I like the color blue. And it's going to give you some options.
Right.
You can customize them, right, and make them your own. In the job search process, one of the top things you should do, and you see it in my banner here, I've got my contact listed.
Yep.
That contact cannot be scraped because it's a picture. It requires someone to grab a pen or type on their keyboard to type it in, right? So it's not going to create a bunch of spam, but it will increase contact. For many years, I sourced for recruiters on LinkedIn because I had a large network back then.
Right.
And they would tell me, go out and find somebody who does A, B, and C. And I would find 10 people who do A, B, and C. They only wanted 5. And 5 of them I could get the contact for without paying LinkedIn. Guess which 5 went to the recruiter? Were they the best 5? Or were they the 5 that I had contact for? They were the 5 I had contact for. Hopefully they were the best too. They were the best for me because I got paid that way, right? Ease of contacting, you want to bring it into this piece. It also will take a kind of maybe a generic banner and make it yours, make it personalized. The impression rate when somebody lands on this page, when you personalize a background banner, is that you know what you're doing on LinkedIn, you know what you're doing in social media, you know how to present yourself for best results. So it has an impact immediately. Use that impact in the picture area.
So are you saying to present it in the picture area instead of the contact info?
You can do it in the contact info, but contact info requires them to be a connection of yours to be able to see most of your contact info.
Right.
This is opening it up. This is going to get the recruiter, the sourcers who are going out there and they're searching and they're looking for people they can connect to.
Okay.
If you don't want your phone number out there, and some people don't, you can get a really, really inexpensive Google number. And you can port your Google number to your regular phone number. So when you're done with the search, boom, it's gone. I don't want it anymore, right?
Yes.
Nobody can call you direct. They can leave a message. You can then go back and do your research and be able to call them back. But it gives that connectivity, and it's huge. It will drive much more or higher response rates to people who want to connect with you. And you can get rid of the ones you don't.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we begin on the picture of your photo, right? Your picture. Make sure you're 65% of the picture. Smile if you can, right? Be inviting, be professional, dress for the job you want to have, right? Get rid of the background. Backgrounds are confusing. If you can take that background and somehow unite it with your background banner, and here I've done the white, right? Because it connects.
Yep.
That almost kind of puts us together as a product. So when somebody gets here and opens this page up, they have an impression immediately, right? I mean, I've got a few in here that I can kind of show you.
Yep.
So, these are just different individuals who put backgrounds in. Some have no company, some are with companies, but about kind of bringing that out so you can see them, you can connect to them. This is a site built on trust. Now, one of the other things is you can use color backgrounds, right? That kind of blend in. If you are older and you want to appear younger, appear more energetic, appear more vibrant, grab a bright color background.
I see.
Right? Stand out. Get rid of the photographer's favorite, the dark gray, right? It's like a cloudy day, and that's what people see when they see it. Get rid of that. Bring in some of these colors and, kind of have fun with it. Pull it in. So again, somebody who's not branded to a company, but it does have a impression factor. One thing that I believe in, and that is turning your head a little bit. I turn my head too much on mine. I'm just being cheeky, but turn it just a little bit It's called a one ear, which means you can see one ear more than the other. And what that does is it keeps you safe from identity theft. People will scrape LinkedIn because people will take these straight on shots on LinkedIn, and you can make a passport or driver's license with it, steal your identity because there's enough information on your profile. Do that one ear shot, that's going to protect you, right? So I won't go too much farther in there, but that component of this has a huge impact when somebody lands on your page. So
okay, I just want to say that one of our audience members had a question, and she said, beside AI, where do we get a background image? And you said Google. You just Google it, correct?
You can Google it. That's one area. You Google free background image.
Sure.
Tell them what you're looking for, right? Sales management, telecom, whatever it is. Give them a little info, and Google should give up Google images in that area. And then you just want to double check that they are free to use, or sometimes they charge you $1 or $2 if it's one of the services, right?
Sure.
And then it's yours, and then you don't get in any trouble later on. So, but Canva is another great source for that. Microsoft Designer also has a system involved in there. And if you have newsletter as a option on LinkedIn, Microsoft Designer is built in. And you can create a banner within that as the newsletter topper, but really use it as your background banner.
Okay, all right.
So that's an even more developed out area.
Branding consistency, Yep.
Now, in the top card, you notice I've got the little check mark. That's verification.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it basically means I'm who I say I am, that LinkedIn has verified me in one of many ways. They can do a company email, right? They checked your driver's license. That's what we do here in the US. Outside of the US, they check a passport that has a chip, but basically it's a third party. Here in the US, it's Clear that does the ID check, and it basically says I match my ID. And so LinkedIn says I'm a real person. Well, if we think about the business of LinkedIn, and it's these billion profiles, right? 65% of LinkedIn's annual revenue comes from selling members to other members. The biggest portion of that is recruiter. It's almost $11 billion, right? They want to take care of that customer. That customer always wants to make sure they're getting real members, because there are fake members out there, right? They want to make sure they're getting real members, that they're qualified. And so when you do this verification, LinkedIn is going to serve you as a top result when that recruiter's looking for people. So, think about it like a ranking, like Google ranks the internet, right? They went out there and they checked the internet for everything that's out there. When you type in a query, right, it gives you relevant results. LinkedIn does the same thing for its recruiters. This has high relevance to the recruiter, and so LinkedIn serves it up top. So it's a way of kind of getting to the top. Headline area, this is a place to stand out. The first probably 30 spaces in this is what follows you around everywhere on LinkedIn.
Yes.
The biggest difference, for a long time, this was a big area to SEO, right? If I needed keywords, I shoved them in here and they worked. Now it's less about SEO. Now it's more about when I appear in a search result, how do I stand out?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Right.
If I look like everybody else and I'm using the same words and it's just a bunch jumbled in there, and somebody's looking at this page of 10 results and they want to go to the next page of 10 results, the one that stands out are the ones they're going to open and look at, right? I start mine with a little bit of humor, brand to land, eliminating personal branding.
Yep.
People call me all the time about it, contact me all the time about it. Personal branding, that's funny. So you can have a little humor in here. You can have personality in here. I still have my keywords in there towards the end.
Sure, yeah.
You can put titles in this of what you want to acquire next. That helps a recruiter when they're looking. But think of this less about SEO, more about IEO, right?
So are you suggesting that, just a second, are you suggesting that job seekers include a tagline of some sort in their headline?
Absolutely. Why not? If we're going to productize ourselves so that we get served up more often, so that recruiters respond to us, we don't want to look like everybody else, and we don't want to look like a laundry list.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
One other thing, you'll see a lot of people out there using what we call pipes. That's that one line that's a little bit longer than the rest of the letters, straight up and down. It is a font, but it's also a database command. Within LinkedIn, if you're using the pipe, it's actually telling the sort engine inside LinkedIn that I want you to either take this or that, but not necessarily both.
Really?
So it actually becomes a divider.
Oh, yeah.
What I use is these are just kind of funny because I have tools in here, right? So these are like little screwdrivers. They are emojis, they're images.
Right.
So they don't tell the database to do anything. They're safe, they look the same. You can find one that looks exactly like a pipe, or you can find one that doesn't, that makes it just a little bit different.
But so you're saying that instead of using the command, the keyboard command, that you copy an icon or a emoji, and then you just paste it to your profile.
And you can use a very plain emoji that looks just like a pipe, right?
Right.
It doesn't have to be a star or a rocket or anything like that. If that's not you personally, it doesn't make you feel comfortable and it doesn't maybe fit the industry, you can use conservative emojis as well, kind of like I've done here.
Never knew that. Yeah.
Anytime we're selecting location, go for the larger metroplex.
Yes.
Right? There are 35 cities around the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex. People will say Richardson, right? Well, there's only so many companies in Richardson. There's only so many recruiters who are recruiting for Richardson. There are a lot more recruiting for the metroplex.
I see. Okay.
So get the big net out, right? Don't mind a little bit of a drive. I wouldn't want to drive from Dallas to Fort Worth. That's an hour, right? But I might want to drive in between. And so if I only select Dallas, I don't get those cities in between.
Okay.
So
for my customers out there, instead of listing Dracut, Kingsborough, Tewksbury, Somerville as your town, Greater Boston area.
Yeah, and I'll show you because LinkedIn will actually make suggestions. So as we are in this, I'm going to click this edit pencil real quick here. So as you go down to industry, or pardon me, not industry, location, right? This is the one it would have defaulted to based on my zip code.
I see.
This is the one I selected because it's the larger net, right? It's always going to give you this. And this kind of steps into the next piece I wanted to talk about, and that is fitting into the database of LinkedIn, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to use anything that pops into the drop-down box that relates to you.
Yep.
So you don't want to type in your own stuff and let that go because that's outside of the database. That's gray data, can't be found. So you always want to, when LinkedIn gives you a drop-down box, examine that drop-down box and use those options. And
okay, I'm sorry, just kind of I just wanted to reiterate what you said is that you need to choose something that is in the drop-down because otherwise it will be gray matter. Is that what you said?
Gray data.
Gray data. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, there's two types of data, right? Zeros and ones, black and white. There's gray in the middle. Gray means it's neither one, so it can't be categorized.
Very important. Thank you.
No, we don't want to have that happen in a database. We don't want to be uncategorized.
Okay, good.
Open to work, always one of these disputed things. Should I show the banner? Should I not? From what I can understand, depending on where you are in your career experience, it works extremely well from somebody coming out of college, getting the first job, or early on in the career. The higher up they go, sometimes the less it helps, and maybe even the more it gives a sense of desperateness in that sense. But you can select open to work and use that for recruiters only, which I'm not looking for work, but I do this because what it does, interesting enough, it establishes within LinkedIn what you are interested in. So if I set my levels, and this is, very much, I'm always messing up my own stuff. So as you type in, these are these drop-down boxes. These are called market value filters, right?
Yeah.
If I select one from this box, I could type in CEO and, I could select one of those. But if I selected from that box, that's going to put me within the filter.
Okay.
I can then be searched for that title.
Not CEO.
And so
right.
really important to get those things right. But this is one of those areas that no matter what you're doing, you can control a little bit about how LinkedIn sees you because you're telling them what you're interested in, right?
Sure.
And don't just put titles in here that you currently may have held, right? Put the next level up. Because somebody who's hiring for that next level up may find you in this search process and say, well, yeah, you're ready. Let's pull you up. So not only are you landing a new job, but you're landing a better job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's just kind of a quick area in there. I'm trying to be as quick as I can without.
No, I get it. We could talk hours and hours on this, but yeah. So to be found.
Now, I'm going to jump into about section. Interesting thing about section, recruiters and sourcers read them. Most people don't, but they do. Those are the ones we're trying to attract, right? Decision makers, recruiters, sourcers, they're going to read into this. But if your about section starts like everybody else's, right? Seasoned this, that, and the other in these industries with these talents, I'm not even going to click see more, right? Start this like a newspaper article does. Give them a hook, right?
Yeah.
Get them excited because they're only going to see these first couple of lines. And they're going to hit see more to see more.
Are you saying write some clickbait?
Not clickbait, because clickbait means it's not true, right? It's bait.
Right.
But it is a hook in the sense that you are trying to reel them in.
Sure.
So put your best bait out there. Put something in there that makes them want to know more about you. This is a social platform. So think about it in the sense of networking, and bring that hook in so that they want to dive into this. Now, principles of reading, the psychology behind reading, white space is important, small blocks of information. Because I will get somebody's section and it'll have both these paragraphs together. And it's like, boom, too long, didn't read, went on, right?
Sure.
Another psychology behind reading is, I don't know if anybody knows this is called the flying F.
Oh, wow.
This was perfected in spam email of all things. And believe it or not, I used to send out 3 million emails a night before canned spam laws. This was, again, turn of the century. I was a bad boy. What is interesting about this is when you put them in this pattern, longest at the top, shortest at the bottom, and you descend the order.
That's interesting.
Well, it has two things. You say it's interesting. You know what it puts behind somebody's head is organized. If I had these same things and they were all staggered, it would look a mess. So now you're thinking organized, interesting. The other component of that is when you do the flying F pattern, people who see it have a tendency to read it 95% of the time, all bullets. When you have staggered, long, short, 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 long, 11% of the people will read all the bullets.
Interesting.
So it's not
I never heard of that.
Important to get them in the order of impressiveness. It's important to get them so that they all get read.
So this is from your marketing background, which I mean, we're doing marketing, right?
It is. We're productizing ourselves, right? So, you've got a little more room to kind of express. I'm kind of pitching my stuff in here, so you wouldn't be doing that, but you want a call to action, right? If you're interested in brainstorming on the following, give them 3 bullets, building high performance teams based on empowerment. Whatever your thing is that you bring to the table, come up with 3 bullets that are so enticing that somebody needs to contact you to begin the conversation, right? They're not going to leave that page. Somebody said, well, why would you put a call to action in the about page? And I looked at them and I said, you're in sales. If you've gone out and presented to a company and you didn't ask for the sale and nothing happened, who is to blame?
Good point.
Right? The next salesman who goes in or salesperson who goes in and asks for the sale and gets the sale, they did what they're supposed to do. Ask for the sale, right? Entice them, tell them what you do that nobody else does. Now,
so you have your contact information in multiple places. Are you saying that my folks should do that? Put it in their background image?
Look how I'm doing these.
Yeah.
If you notice, that's really not a phone number. It's not the format for a phone number. but anybody would know that's my phone number, right? So +1 is America. And then I do the dash, you could do dots, but you break it up so that it's not the standardized format. The reason you do that is so that bots, and they call spam bots, they don't scrape LinkedIn, find your contact, and start bombarding you with stuff, right? That's the reason you do this. Same thing with the emails. You notice I parsed in here.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Put a little space in here, a little space there.
Yeah.
Somebody could grab that. You could copy that, stick it in your email, take the spaces out, and you can send me an email. But it takes a human to be able to do that. Spam bots would not collect that because then it end up with a database of stuff they couldn't use unless they modified it.
Right, great point.
So it keeps you safe, but makes you very available. And so,
because some of my folks are worried about spam.
Oh yeah,
about
and you should be.
Identity theft.
Yep. And you should
raise a hand of how many people are worried about spam or identity theft. Okay, I see one hand go up, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not as many as I thought, but maybe about 10 out of the 84 who were here.
Nobody should freak out about it, but everybody should protect themselves. It's kind of like locking your door at night. You shouldn't panic that you haven't locked the door yet, right? You should just lock it. And if you do these things, you stay safe. You never have an issue. You shouldn't have to worry about it. But it's good to know so that you don't have those issues. Top skills. Find the 5 top skills that always relate to the things that you want to do going forward that are always in those job postings. This is the hardest thing to do, is to pick only 5, right? But the nice thing is LinkedIn now gives you the ability to pick 100 skills and assign them to each experience. And we'll talk about why we do that. But here you got to pick your top 5. Now, I'm going to jump into something really quick, and that is called Career Explorer. It is on LinkedIn's GitHub. I don't know if I can throw that in. I don't even know where I would throw it in.
Folks, this is the kind of information that Kevin shares on LinkedIn on a regular basis.
I can't add that in, but I can get you that address. What this does is it's going to compare against your profile.
Yeah.
You type in a job that you want, okay? Or even that you have, either way.
Yep.
As you're typing it in, you notice that there's a drop-down box. These are market value filters or market value titles. These are the ones that every other company call you when they're setting up that account, right? And so you want to select one of these. If it's close, that's the one to select. And then what LinkedIn's going to tell you right here is, here's the top skills for that particular position.
Sure.
Right? And then over here, if somebody wanted to go from national sales manager to sales director, you've got a 92% match in skills.
It's interesting.
Here's the ones that are more sales director. Here's the ones that are more director or sales director, national director. Here are the skills that LinkedIn says, I don't quite see it on your profile. So if you don't, but you actually have these, you should be adding those in as skill sets and adding them into the context if they're important, right? And then it says the popularity of making this transition. You can also set that up, not just popularity, but I guess success rate is another option for there. And as you go down, it's going to give you other options of what you could be looking at, right? So as you're picking things in the open to work, these could be other titles that you might roll into it.
Right.
Now, I always find this fascinating, the market value titles. People always worry, well, that's not what they call me at work, or that's not what they called me there. If somebody called HR, they'd have a problem with that, right?
True.
I learned many years ago, we did the transition for the head of HR for Yahoo. His title, and this was what was booked in HR, this is what was on his business card, was Cloud9 Navigator. What's a Cloud9 Navigator?
Right, exactly.
Nobody found him on LinkedIn. Nobody talked to him on LinkedIn. No recruiters were paying attention to him on LinkedIn. When we did his profile, we changed it to Chief Human Resource Officer. And then in the experience area, because he still worked for Yahoo, we put internally known as the Cloud9 Navigator.
Right, good.
Now, if somebody, HR, if they want to do a background check, they'd say, do you have a Chief Human Resource Officer internally known as the Cloud9 Navigator? Yes, we did, or we did. Yeah. it was verifiable, it was honest, and it was using a term that is a official category within LinkedIn, so you can be found.
So
And
that avoids getting into trouble with HR because you listed a different title than what you were assigned?
Yeah, but you're also telling them what that title is in the experience, right? Internally known as. And so you've covered both bases. A little trickier if you're with the company than if you're not. But if you've left that company, you don't owe them anything, but you do owe anybody else looking at your profile an honest presentation. And so if that's what every other company would call you, and then you're going to let them know what they called you internally, that is a perfect presentation that is honest. That's straight up. And that's going to get you the most exposure. And this is a great place to kind of go through and figure these things out. So not only is it going to help you with titles, but it's also going to help you with the skill sets, and it's going to identify what they're not seeing in your content and skills. Now, coming back up here, there's a service section. If you're unemployed, LinkedIn will allow you to join their service provider program. And you can go in there and you can basically consult through LinkedIn. You don't pay them anything. All LinkedIn does is it collects leads and says, here's leads. The first 5 people who respond to it have a chance. They don't give you the contact information, but they give you the profile view and what that person's looking for. And you do a pitch. You present to them, follow up with them if they contact you, close the sale, make a little money while you're in transition, right? And LinkedIn, I think this is an incredible program. I've been using this before it was called ProFinder. And this sounds terrible. It sounds kind of cheesy and cheap. I've made for my own company over $1 million using services provider. So it can generate a lot of opportunity, and it's at your pace. They'd be having leads all the time. You respond to them, you build it up. If you are a CPA, you could be doing CPA work today. You don't have to be with a firm, right? If you're in marketing, you could be doing social media projects for all sorts of businesses through services. So join it up, build the page. It's a great opportunity. Now, going down into the experience section, this is where we're going to hit a lot of these market value filters, right? So the first
Kevin, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you going to talk about the tool that I don't know, gauges your social proof? I forget what it's called.
Oh, SSI?
Yeah.
We can talk about that. I'm not a big fan of it.
Okay, yeah.
To me, SSI, and they used to actually make this statement, it was a tool designed to sell Sales Navigator.
Oh.
So it's kind of a trick. And so they got people interested in it. The first segment of it is about growing your connectivity, right? Or growing your brand. And the last one is about your contact, your network. The 2 in the middle, one of them is to engage with insights. And the other one, I can't remember exactly what it was. Those 2 middle ones, you can only maximize them if you have Sales Navigator.
Oh, I see.
Cannot be done without it. So that's what they do, is they get you to a point and they go, well, if you don't want to buy it, you're never going to get to that perfect score. And they keep suggesting you buy Sales Navigator to get there. So it is a tool done that. Now, given that, you can use SSI just to get an overall scope, knowing that the 2 middle ones are never going to get past 15s, right?
No matter how hard you try.
Unless you buy Sales Navigator, it's going to, and mine are always dead on in that zone.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. So just if you realize that, then you can use it as a tool, especially if you're just starting out and you're starting to post and you're starting to engage and you're starting to connect with more people. It does give you kind of a progress scale. Just realize you'll never have a perfect score unless you buy that Sales Navigator. And for most people, it's much more than they know what to do with.
Yeah.
So again, back to market value filters, right? So these are the different names. If I typed in here Cloud9 Navigator, nothing would drop down in the drop-down box.
Right.
right? If I start typing in something like partner manager, it probably wouldn't go into the drop-down box. But while I was typing partner, it would probably say partner, managing partner, those kind of things, right? So, you have that ability to find those things. And you definitely want to use what they're using. The next one here, which is a market value filter, is full employment type, right? And what most people do is they leave it blank. I didn't do anything. This is the way it came. I don't have to do anything. If you look at this drop down, these are based on the value that LinkedIn's main customer, the recruiter, wants to pay for, right? Full-time has more value than seasonal. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And so this is a scale that drops you down in ranking as you select down the scale. If you select, please select, you are below seasonal on the results.
So you have to select one of them.
Yeah, because guess what? Pre-select is gray data, right? I don't know what to do with it, so I'm just going to discount it. I'm going to put you at the bottom of the list. So you got to pick one of these. If you are off or you've left a company, right? So you end dated that company, you can do a couple of things. You can build your own page, create your own consulting agency, that kind of stuff. You can join a temporary service and align with them, right? Even if they don't send you out to work. You can take your board position volunteer work and put that in as your current position. So there's a lot of ways you can do this, but you always want to put this at full time. If I'm looking for a job, I'm working more than full time. So I'm going to select full time. That's how I look at that. That's how I interpret it. Same thing with companies. If I were to select this company with the little building blocks, right? That company is not attached to a company page. So LinkedIn looks at that and says, well, that may or may not be real employment because the company may or may not exist. This is gray data. That's why those building blocks are in gray.
And Kevin, I've seen people who are unaware that they may have just misspelled the word or they added extra letters
all the time.
And then they have that gray box, which is quite ugly.
Or if you're in the internet business, right? Everybody bought everybody else.
Yeah.
At some point, somebody bought the company if it was of value. And so you can take the current ownership of the company, use their name, right? And then define it below. ABC was acquired by Sony in 1999, right? So you're giving it true essence, but it's now locking you down as an employed individual. Whereas if it's that gray box, it means it didn't exist. Now, don't do that if that company page still exists or if that logo is pulling. Only do it if you have that gray box. There's your locations. We always want to pick the larger one of the two. This is another component here, and this is work type. If you leave it like this, you're at the bottom of the list for work type. So if a recruiter's saying, I only want people interested in on-site, right? You're at the bottom of the list on this one, even if you were ready to do on-site.
Yeah.
So you should select this. It should be honest to what you want. So if you only do remote, only select remote. If you can do hybrid, that's probably the most popular, right? Do hybrid. If you can do on-site, you'll probably be a higher demand because that's what companies want.
Sure.
So you want to kind of look at that and say, well, what is that? And select the one that fits right, but know it does have a ranking ability. And again, these are ranked in the order of preference by recruiters, and that's in the order of search results. So we want to be at the top of those search results. So
I have a question from one of our customers, Kevin.
Yep.
I've got a question from one of our customers, and this is, I guess she's asking for your opinion. So I've worked at the same company for 36 years. Is it wise to leave that? Does it give away my age?
There's a couple things going on. Sometimes if we work for a company for 36 years, there can be a benefit in the sense that they know you're loyal, right?
Yeah.
But 36 years is longer than what we call current business skill set, the timing of current business skill set, right? So you could take that same company and you could put just the last 10 or 15 years, you could date it, right? You don't have to give them any more information. Most of the digital analysis, most of the human analysis is going to be done on the last 10 to 15 years of our experience, because that is what we call current business skill set. I've been in sales, marketing, and branding for 35 plus years. The way I did sales, marketing, and branding 35 years ago is not what it is today, right? Really, last year isn't what it is today. So depending on what industry you're in, that time frame might even be shorter. If you're in cybersecurity, do I care what you did 10 years ago? Probably not.
Not in my opinion.
Do I care what you're doing today? Yeah. Yes. So know that there is a timing factor in there. If you want to appear younger, right, you can shorten that. You don't have to tell them your whole career. You can tell them as much as you want to tell them. So that's important to know. And so, you know, you can look at that in that sense. One of the drawbacks of having too many years at a company often is, if you did it 35 years that way, you won't be able to do it our way, right? If you got 35 years of experience, you're going to be really, really expensive. So there can be some drawbacks for too many years.
Yeah.
So, you know, think about it and decide what feels right to you, but you don't have to tell them the whole story, just the story that they need to know. And so going back in here, as we get down into, you know, descriptions and all that stuff, we get our skills, right? We can assign, and it suggests top 5. You can have now 100 skills. You can assign all 100 skills to every experience if it makes sense.
If it applies.
Right? The reason they have now these skills assigned to an experience is so they can get years of experience in that skill. So if I had business development and I had that attached to 3 jobs, and those 3 jobs, when I add them up, was 15 years, I would now within the system have 15 years of business development. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So that's what they're using this for. So don't care about this 5. Put as many in there that actually make sense, that you actually used in that position. Bring them in, right?
So you can include up to 100 skills under one position, as long as they apply.
And that's the reason that normally when you're looking at a position, I'll see if I can do that in the background, LinkedIn normally only shows the first couple, and then it will say, and 25 more, right? Or and 100 more, or whatever, you know, it's going to say how many more is in there.
And you know how I feel about that.
Yes.
I like them all laid out, you know?
You know, and as we get into these 100 skills, it gets pretty ugly because it's a big paragraph.
So do you think 100 skills is you know, a good thing? I think 50 is enough.
It depends on the individual, right? I think people who are in data programming and stuff like that, and that kind of area, they've got 50 software programs that they're skilled in.
Sure.
Right? That doesn't even include their soft skills and all the other things that they're doing. So in some areas, yes, in some, no, right? It's got to be right for you. But if they're looking for it in those jobs that you're applying to, you better bring it in. Right? And so what I do like about LinkedIn is they will give you this extra bit here based on the title. We think you should have these skills. These are skills that are not in my skill list. So I could click them and add them, right then and there. But if they don't fit, I don't want to do that. But it tells you that. Now, what's really neat is if you wanted to go to let's see there. If you want to go to the next level in a position, type it in the title, and you should get a completely different, well, I didn't do it, but normally it will give you a completely different version of skill sets. What is it sees as missing? I've been a CEO before, so maybe it's just not figuring it out from the rest of the stuff. But that's kind of neat that you can adjust titles to find out those components that you may want to add in there to show that you're ready for the next step.
For recruiters, it's a good way
to kind of set things up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, all of that should spell right.
Well, manager is the most misspelled word on a resume.
It, I'm just going to discard. Maybe we'll get out of it that way. Perfect. So all those things are really important. One of the other things I like to do in profiles, add some media, because it gives the eye a break, right? As you're going down through somebody's profile, if you're doing that, it also helps with SEO. So if you're going to add something in, you can add the company logo, you can title it the position, your name, and the company, and then in the little description box below, give a short description of the company and a link to the company website. You find all that on the company page on their about section, right? But that helps with SEO, locking you into titles that you may no longer have, but it does have an impact. So I would definitely want to kind of look at pulling those in. Mm-hmm. Another area, and this is something that is a little controversial, and people are getting kind of stuck on this process, and that is education. Now, interesting enough, they have changed the education database several times. They've also done that with industry and locations. So sometimes if you have an old location, it might not be in the database anymore. Same thing with education. A couple of years ago, they would have Bachelor of Business Administration, and then they would have it in brackets, BBA. Well, if you had that and a recruiter was looking for somebody with a BBA, they wouldn't find you. So you want to go back in, retype it until you get that. So a lot of people, when they're putting this in, they just kind of put in what they want to put in, right? So I knew it was this, or I knew it was a BBA. Well, if you don't take the drop-down box, you're not in the filter.
Not in the filter.
Gray data, and you might not be found. So if you earned a degree or you earned a certificate, make sure you're locking it in by getting these filters right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes we remember things differently than what they were. Now, you noticed on both jobs and on certifications, education, you've got your skills attached to them, and you can move those up. So if I wanted strategy to my top one, I click on this, what we call the hamburger, right? And you move it up, let it go. Now it's the top one they see. Doesn't change anything in ranking, SEO, or anything else. It's that IEO, right? The visual optimization. And so you can move those around a little bit.
One of the customers asked, what does IEO mean?
It means eye, like the eyeball, right?
Yeah.
Optimization. That's all it is, like SEO. So it's
more
just
human
making
than
a human
SEO.
eye.
Yeah, very good.
That's what it is. So the other thing about education, and this is absolutely bonkers, if you do not put dates in it, you will not be served in a recruiter request that says must have upper, education or master's or anything like that. If you don't have the dates in there, they will put you at the very bottom of the list, or they won't put you on the list at all.
Yeah.
That can be an issue, right? In the sense of it dates us. I always look at it, if a company is an ageism company, if it has that issue, we're not going to change them. Even if we fool them into interviewing us, when we get there, they're like, wow, you're old, right? You're not 23.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to accept you anyway. And you've wasted your time. You might have even, wasted other things in that process, money and relationships and anything else that might have gotten in the way to get you there. Take it as a litmus test. Put your date out there. If they don't like it, they're not going to like it when they meet you in person, if you could even get to that point.
Right.
There are companies out there who have this issue, and we know who they are, and they get caught all the time. They get fined by the government for hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, and they do it again next quarter. One of the companies that blows me away, seems to get caught every quarter, is Starbucks. And you think about, when have you ever met anybody in a Starbucks who works there that's over 38?
Yeah, come to think of it, I've never really seen anyone.
I've met
territory
directors who have acne. They're kids. That's fine. That's what they want, and they're willing to pay for it. But if we know that in advance, we don't want to deal with them. So this is a good way to actually eliminate that problem from our problem, right? So we can get rid of that part of the equation. And
so transparency will eliminate the hassle you'll get if they have you in for an interview and.
And that's, just that, because who wants to waste time? Who wants to get excited when that's going to be an issue for them anyway, and they're not going to hire you because they're going to come up with some other reason, right?
Right.
There's always somebody who was better that interviewed, right after you, and they were 28. If that's the issue, don't waste your time. Get it out front, and you'll solve your own problems that way. So. Same thing in certifications and those kind of things. Make sure they're locked to real companies, real certificates, those kind of things. Projects are a great way to get extra exposure. If you think about a lot of the interview questions, they'll be like, tell me about a time when you did this, and you want to kind of lay it out maybe in that STAR method. You can do the same thing on projects, and you can bring in other contributors.
Yes.
And recruiters love this, because it allows you to then present, how did I solve a problem, right? How did I bring something additional to the table? This is kind of above and beyond what would be in a resume or on the profile, but these projects have huge impact. Volunteer work, always great. Skills, when we get into skills, as we were showing earlier, you can, by clicking these 3 dots, you can reorder your skills.
Right.
The top 2 skills now, it was 3, now it's 2. They're always going to get the most endorsements because they're at the top, right? People are lazy.
How important are endorsements?
Endorsements are huge.
Are they? Huh.
If I go in and I say I've got something, right? If I say I have social media marketing, that's just me saying that. I could be lying. I could think I have it and I really don't, right? But I said it, I made it my skill. That's the value of it. If somebody else comes along and says, yeah, Kevin has that, that's even better, right? That's social proof. If 10 people say it, that's fantastic. If 100 people say it, it's even better. If somebody says it, endorses you, that's also highly endorsed for that skill, that's like a multiplier. This is the biggest part of our profile ranking, is skills based on endorsements.
Sure.
So they're going to stack us. If Bob, we're both doing LinkedIn training and I've got 10 and you've got 50, you're above me on the list when it's presented. Right? And this is how recruiters are finding people. They're doing skills-based search. So they might do title, they might do industry. They're always doing skill-based.
If they're using LinkedIn Recruiter, that is, right?
What's that?
If they're using LinkedIn Recruiter.
Yes, within LinkedIn Recruiter, but also outside of LinkedIn Recruiter, right? If I'm just doing a normal search up here for a sales manager who knows social media, it's going to come into play because LinkedIn trusts it. If 60% of your $17 billion business wanted certain things, you'd make sure they were on the shelf ready to go. That's what LinkedIn does. So again, kind of a different way of looking at this. One of the things I suggest for everybody in this group, if you know each other well enough, start what I call a skills party. Basically, find 100 of your best friends on LinkedIn and say, you know what, if you come to my profile and you give me every skill that you know I have, not the ones you don't.
Right.
If you come and give me every skill you know I have, I will come to your profile and I'll give you every skill I know you have. Maybe Bob knows I have 50 of mine and I only know Bob has 20 of those that I see on Bob's thing. I'm going to give him 20, he's going to give me 50. So sometimes it's that way. But you only want to get what people know you have, but very quickly you'll ramp these skills up and you'll go way up on the ranking list.
I see.
Right? That discoverability impacts everything on LinkedIn. It is the tail that wags the dog. You definitely want to get after this and get it right. And so hopefully we've given you enough tools to do that. If you're looking in there and there's an old, I don't know if I even have one anymore, if there's an old skill in there and it's no longer of value, right?
Get rid of it.
Yeah, just take it out. It doesn't matter if you have 100 endorsements to it. If nobody's looking for it, it's baggage, right?
Like
It's
dog.
blanding. Get rid of it. Let it go.
Yeah.
Start afresh. And especially if you selected something and you're not using their market value title. Maybe you selected mergers and acquisitions and you spelt it all the way out, and then you put M&A on the end, and that's not how LinkedIn uses that skill. Get rid of it because nobody's going to look for it. Put the right one in, and then start getting endorsements on it.
I hear you. Yeah.
LinkedIn, the same thing with written recommendations. Often within LinkedIn Recruiter, they will note if you have written recommendations. They also note if you've given written recommendations.
True.
So you don't always want to have a bunch that were given to you and you give none out, right? Because that doesn't quite show that you're in that, give and take mix. You're just taking at that point. And so you want to have that, and you want to have a mix of written recommendations, because if they're driven to the profile for all the right reasons and they get down here, they do look at these recommendations, because again, they're social proof. They might recognize somebody in there to say, okay, you know what, if Art says that, it's got to be true. I'm going with this, right? It could be the difference maker. So make sure you've got these going and make sure you're giving them, because it is a big thing. If I can jump out of this zone.
Sure. I mean, we're at the top of the hour, but.
Well, you tell me when you want me to stop, because you know me. I'll keep going.
I could listen to you all day, but for those of you who have to leave, feel free. But before you go, I want to thank you very much for attending, and I want to thank Kevin absolutely for doing this presentation. You were great, Kevin.
I love doing it.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in right. If you're on a business page, right? Follow the company, because that comes up in Recruiter that you're following them. If I apply to a job, but I'm not following the company, how interested do you think I really am of working for that company? Right? Recruiter gets that information. So follow that company, ring the bell, right? And you now have options in ringing the bell. I want to see everything that company offers. So you ring that bell, right? The other component is the recruiter will see how many people do you know inside the company.
Yeah.
It'll actually even list them sometimes, but it will give a number. And the value behind that is, if I'm joining a company, right, and I know 30 people in that company, I'm probably a safe bet that I'm going to fit the culture of that company, because I already know people there, right? They're going to be comfortable with me. They know I already know these people. They know I already know about the company. And so you go up in the rankings again because you know more people within that company. If you're targeting companies, you should be following them. You should be looking at everything they're doing, engaging with their posts, and you should be connecting at all levels, right, within that organization, because that comes up as a factor in whether you're going to make a good employee there or not. So definitely kind of capitalize on those two things. Large companies, and I'll do this real quick here.
Is it possible to follow too many companies?
It can be in the sense of
organization,
it's organizing, add stuff to your feed, but on the other side of it, the recruiter doesn't see if you follow 50 companies.
True. Yeah. So I would say no.
So that part doesn't affect. If you go to larger companies that are using Recruiter, you can go to the About page. And if you scroll down that, you've got this little thing, interested in working with us in the future. If you click on that, what that now tells the HR group and the recruiters at Microsoft is, hey, this guy is following and he's interested. So why don't you take a look at his profile? And if it fits any of these future things you're planning, this might be a great person.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of the hidden market. You're announcing that you're interested in their hidden market. Right? So a really good thing to do. I've known a lot of people who've had great success with this. It's only on big companies. Now, let's say you do 50 of these, right? You can go into privacy and settings, and there is one toggle that will turn off all those I'm interested, and you can turn them back on at the same time right afterwards. And there's a concept on LinkedIn, and that's called the timed value of data, right? The newer the data is, the more accurate it is. So if you're telling them you're interested and you told them that 6 months ago, and Bob, you told them yesterday, they're going to assume you're more interested than I am because that was 6 months ago, right? If you turn it off, turn it back on, you are now fresh on the list of who's interested.
True.
That's that timed value of data. The same reason you want to be involved in LinkedIn, because the more you do on LinkedIn, posting, engaging, communicating, connecting, LinkedIn says, well, you have active time value of data. So you are, again, going to move up that list because of that activity makes you timed of more value. So you want to do those things, but that's one way that you can up yourself on that interested list. We talked a little bit earlier about the open to work. Open to work is the same way. When you turn on open to work, you're initially blasted out to those recruiters. You're at the top of the list because you just turned it on. You actually start fading down to the bottom of the list because new people are coming in, right? If you turn that off, open to work, and turn it back on every week, you're always at the top of the list. So you put a little timer in saying, turn it off, turn it back on. Right. I want to be the freshest data they've got.
That makes sense.
So small tricks like that have huge impact as far as keeping your exposure, because I'll bet if anybody used that, they turned it on X months ago and they left it. You're at the bottom of the list. Get yourself back up by turning it off, turning it back on, and then you're fresh again. I don't know how much more I should take of your time, because you know me, I can keep going, but.
Yeah, I know. I think we will end it here, but again, I want to thank you so much for educating not only our audience, but me. Thank you, for volunteering your time.
It is a mutual respect, Bob.
What's that?
You're always educating me, so that's good.
All right, buddy. So again, thank you all who are still here. 72 people hung out. That's good.
That's not bad.
No, that's not bad. Out of 84.
That or 72 people fell asleep with their laptops on.
I don't think so. I don't think so. There's no one more knowledgeable of LinkedIn than you. So thank you so much. All right.
Absolutely. And I hope everybody follows.
Okay.
And
stay safe. And hope Dallas doesn't have any natural disasters. that freezer, the freezing storm. Oh my God.
That was crazy. Yeah, we all still remember those things.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
All right, Bob. Take care.
Yeah, thank you.